The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.
Fuck Robert Taylor.
You know, he actually asked me to give you shit tonight, but I'm not going to.
Give me shit?
Yes, you. You specifically.
I mean,
Why?
Why else? Hold on. I should probably introduce who we are and what we're doing first here.
Yeah,
I?
probably.
Yeah, probably how this works. I'm possibly, potentially Manchester Unitedly. Thank you for that, by the way. I'll explain that in a few seconds. Good evening, afternoon, whenever you listen, everybody, and welcome to the Kickoff here on the W2M Network. I am your host. My name is Harry Broadhurst. The Manchester United fans that I was referring to are none other than the executive producer turned co-host, Erik Watkins.
Oh, at least you can finally all just shut up about it in Liverpool. At least you better. If you bottle this, I swear, this will be the main thing until my dying day.
Oh, you know they will.
I wasn't referring to the EPL in this instance. I'm referring to the fact that a former Manchester United Academy player cost Shrewsbury the replay on Monday in the FA Cup.
Oh, I didn't even know about that.
He was one of... Oh, son of a bitch.
Nobody cares about fucking hockey or soccer or any of that bullshit.
Technically, we talk football on this show. Sometimes it's just with a U instead of the... never mind. The other Manchester United fan that I was referring to is the co-host turned executive producer, Brandon Biskobing.
Glory, glory, Man United. I can't really talk because they suck this year, and apparently...
Well, I believe the proper way to say that is glory, glory, middle of the table.
Yes.
Hey. The top four is still within reach. I
True.
would have loved it if we gotten a damn goal against Wolverhampton of all teams, but it's still within reach.
And the soccer aristocrat, the non-conformist of the group, is the chairman of the W2M Network, Jason Teasley.
Fuck Robert Taylor.
We head back to where we started. Yeah, this is your Super Bowl wrap-up episode of the Kickoff, and the 2019-2020 NFL champions are the Kansas City Chiefs.
Hey, Harry.
How about your
Hey, Harry. Harry. What time is it?
You start with this bullshit, you will be one less host tonight.
What time is it, Harry?
My clock is broken. I'm sorry.
Erik?
Mine isn't. It's Mahomes time.
It is indeed.
All right, so
you have your one.
Yeah, let's go ahead and actually discuss the game now. Final score of 31-20 as Kansas City comes back from a 20-10 deficit at the start of the fourth quarter in order to score 3 times unanswered to win the game outright in regulation.
Jimmy G blew it.
All y'all, everybody, you want to bet the over. Oh, you hammered the over. All of y'all throughout the public and at the books and online were betting the over. Fuck all y'all. I warned you.
Erik was the only one to hit the predictions as far as the winner and the over-under line here. But Erik did not win our SB Parlay. We'll talk about that a little bit later on because somebody's ego doesn't need fed yet. All right, so a couple of things to discuss from the game here. Patrick Mahomes voted MVP, which is a farce. It should not have happened. That MVP award should have went to Damien Williams.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Oh, I have to agree with that. But, I mean, in this modern NFL, it's a quarterback league. They're going to give it to the quarterback anyway.
10 of the last 14 Super Bowls have been quarterbacks. I can make a case either way.
What the hell is that?
Yeah,
somebody's throwing a goddamn egg.
Wait, hold Hold on. Are we having some static issues?
Yeah.
I like mine scrambled with paprika, please.
All right, hold on. Let me try something here.
I like my eggs fertilized.
Okay, now it just went away, so it's up. Now it's back. I think it's on your end, Harry.
I think it might be my new headphones. Hold on. Let me go. Apologies for the audio difficulties there, everybody. Tried a new pair of headphones tonight. Obviously not up to snuff, so we go back to the old pair of headphones here. All right, so let's talk some specifics from this game here. Erik, you were mentioning the fact that 10 of the last 14 Super Bowl MVPs have been quarterbacks here. I want an honest answer from you. Do you genuinely think Mahomes should have been the MVP, or do you think it should have went to somebody like a Damien Williams, who had arguably the biggest game of his career?
Because of the late game heroics themselves, I would have given it to Damien Williams. If you're looking at the overall body of work, his was just a little bit better, but again, the touchdown run and touchdown catch, no matter what Niners fans said, that really tipped the scales. But in the minds of the voters and everybody there, I think they looked at how they came back through the air mostly and the early touchdown run at the beginning of the game. So I would have gone Damien Williams, but I get why Mahomes was the choice. Also, shout out to Honey Badger for being the Chiefs team MVP this year.
That I will admit that secondary is much improved after the arguably downright offensive defense they had last year. All right, Jason, I know you don't want to give Kansas City credit, but what specifically about the Chiefs' performance in this game impressed you?
No, I mean, I'll give Kansas City credit, but I still say fuck Robert Taylor. But, I mean, the Chiefs did what they set out to do. They set out to win the game. They didn't falter. They got down early. They stayed tried and true on their game plan. They didn't deviate from it. Mahomes, I mean, I will give the kid credit. He led that team. Like I said, I don't think he should be MVP, but he did lead the team, and he didn't falter down the stretch. He came out, he got a lot of nerves got to him and stuff. I think that first half, but the second half he came out poised, came out and was the rock that the team rallied around. He made some amazing throws, completions. He made good decisions, even though he did have 2 picks, and I'm pretty sure one of them. I mean, I'm pretty sure that he's seen the DB there and just wanted to try to put it through his chest. But I think the Walrus getting the Super Bowl win was well deserved. I mean, I don't think he's one of the greatest coaches of all time. Do I think that he's a good coach? Yeah. But pump the brakes on any other word using Andy Reid and the greatest in the same sentence.
Well, I would real quick. I would certainly argue that this solidifies Andy Reid's Hall of Fame resume. Does it not?
I would have to say yes.
I don't. I think he would have got the Hall of Fame even without a Super Bowl. I mean, I think this cemented his Hall of Fame candidacy. But I think even if he never got a Super Bowl, he would have still made the Hall of Fame. Like I said, he's still a good coach. I mean, he's a great offensive mind. Granted, he has had some hiccups when he made the playoffs. For regular season, he's one of the better coaches of NFL past. Playoffs, he kind of faltered. I think the best thing happened to Andy Reid is he actually had a decent coaching staff with extensive playoff history, to rally around and keep him even keeled where he didn't have to overexert himself across, offense and defense. He could just concentrate on the grand scheme instead of trying to micromanage.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm going to kind of counter that a little bit. If you were to look at not just the stats, but particular players, especially at quarterback, we can agree Donovan McNabb was above average in his career. Yes?
Mm-hmm.
Of course.
Yeah.
Okay. You can get so far with above average at quarterback and closer to average most of the time surrounding that quarterback, regardless of what side of the ball. And that's where Andy Reid, he kind of hit that wall. It's like, okay, I know what to do. I know how I can scheme and spend my time, especially crafting the beginning offensive script. Try to get all of my opponent's weaknesses in those 15 plays and go from there. But with the level of talent, you can only execute but so much. Now, when he has this next level of talent, he's finally able to punch through. So that's why I think, yes, this was the time to where if he were to ever win it, it would have been now. Nobody's calling him the greatest, but the argument of, oh, well, he did this, he did that, and blah, 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 can now be ended because he has the Lombardi Trophy.
Okay, so Brandon, I'm going to come to you with this because you've been arguably the biggest proponent of Mahomes on this show this entire season.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know 4 turnovers from Patrick Mahomes in this game?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I knew that. And that's the reason why I do actually agree with you. Okay,
hold on, because there's something else here.
Okay.
And a San Francisco defense that shut down his rushing ability.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that possibly they may have shown a bit of a design on how to potentially beat a Patrick Mahomes-led Kansas City offense?
To an extent, yes. But especially on the turnover end, I think it was more of a case. Yes, I'm not taking anything away from the San Francisco defense. They were amazing. And yes, I think other teams can certainly take things away from this game as a way to potentially limit Mahomes' abilities. But I think it also didn't help. Mahomes is still only in his second season, and he's already in the Super Bowl. This was a big moment. A lot of those turnovers were in the first half and in the first quarter. So I think a lot of that had to do more with Super Bowl jitters more than anything else.
Fair.
And then once he calmed down after the half, then he showed what he could really do, and San Francisco had problems stopping him.
Erik, correct me if I'm wrong. Wasn't the one really bad interception actually at the start of the third quarter?
Yes, and that was his second one of the night. But to his credit, if you look at his statistics after that second interception, where start of the third quarter, you're really trying to get momentum, this and that, and that's where San Francisco really tipped the scales more in their favor. After that pick, 8 of 13, 141 yards, if I remember correctly, 2 touchdowns?
I think you're right, yeah.
Right. So the fact that he was able to recover from that at such a big state, because you got to remember, he was the third youngest quarterback to start a Super Bowl, youngest ever to win Super Bowl MVP and regular season MVP, like second youngest ever to win a Super Bowl. So you're going to have jitters in this case. It's how you step back from that. Now, do I think this laid a blueprint? Yes. But at the same time, Houston laid out a blueprint. Tennessee laid out a blueprint. Look what happened. You've got to, if you're going to have this blueprint, you've got to execute for 60 minutes.
Real quick, Brandon.
Okay.
Real quick, just because that was actually going to be my next point here. the fact that this was Kansas City's third straight comeback of 10 points or more in this postseason, having done it in all three of their games, the divisional round, the conference championship, and now Super Bowl LIV. Does this establish that perhaps he's the best clutch quarterback in the NFL at the very least?
I would have to say yes, because what I was going to say was it's showing in these last three games that he is very good at understanding what a defense is doing against him, what their strengths are against him, and he has to adapt to that situation, and he's done very well at adapting and conquering in 3 straight games. So it's a situation, I'm not sure if clutch would necessarily be the right word. Yes, he is certainly clutch, but I think it's more adaptable and fluid in terms of the way he plays and being able to realize, okay, this is not working to our favor. They are taking advantage of what we are doing currently. We have to change our game plan and go a different route. And I think defenses have to realize that that's going to happen and realize that they have to change their game plans against him as well.
And I just want to say this kind of real quick. Number one, first team to ever win the Super Bowl having accomplished this. 3 straight double-digit comebacks in a single postseason. And second of all, the fact that Mahomes adapts like he does, but doesn't completely abandon his style of play. He makes tweaks rather than wholesale changes. Mm-hmm. That is really the most impressive, because we've even seen guys like Lamar Jackson. You're down at a certain point. You total scrap, rebuild, do everything different the rest of the game. Then it's a lot easier, and you box yourself into a corner when you can do that. If you keep your defenses, like Bisco said, guessing, still having to play for these certain things and keep your advantage, even though you don't always do that in the fourth quarter and be clutch, the fact that you can fix it on the fly and make these comebacks, that makes you very, very dangerous.
All right, Jason, I'll ask you the same question here. In terms of clutch factor here, does this cement Mahomes as the NFL's current clutch quarterback?
I put him top 3. I mean, if you're down 7 with, the length of the field to go, I would say that, I would trust him enough to be in my top 3 quarterbacks to lead me down the field for a victory. I mean, I would still put, TB12 and Rodgers in that conversation. But they are going toward the twilight of their career. So, but I mean, I still would trust them over Mahomes simply because of the maturity level. And if you put either one of them behind that with that receiving core, that's scary. I mean, Mahomes, I do harp on Mahomes, but I will give him the credit. But he does have some talented receivers. I mean, he's got probably the fastest wide receiving core in the NFL and one of the premier tight ends.
I was going to say here, I think that people are discounting the fact that, yes, as good as Mahomes can play, and yes, he's been spectacular at times. However, there have been some really dumb decisions made throughout the course of these last couple of seasons as well. But let's factor in that he has probably one of the, I would argue, at the very least, 5 best wide receivers in the NFL in Tyreek Hill, and probably the best tight end in the NFL in Travis Kelce.
Yeah, I could agree with that.
Damian Williams came out of absolutely nowhere this year for that rushing attack, because everyone was expecting LaShawn McCoy to be the guy up in Kansas City after they cut Kareem Hunt after his offseason activities. That being said, undrafted Damian Williams was the big story. Let's now switch our focus over to the other side of the football here. Jason, you're Jimmy Garoppolo. What lessons are you learning from this game?
Not to listen to my head coach and actually take initiative to win a game rather than play to win rather than playing to maintain a lead.
Erik, same question. You're Jimmy Garoppolo. What do you take away from this game?
Right now, I know what I can do. It's like, hey, I can go ahead and I can put together these 3 quarters. I know I've really got to, in a similar fashion to Jason, take command. It's like, okay, I know these throws that I can make in these things. I'm not always going to get the breaks, not always going to get the best play calls, but I got to work with that. Take charge when I have to.
Brandon, would you like to answer the same question, or would you like a different one that I have about the Niners as well?
I can answer the same question, and if you want me to toss that other question, you certainly can. But in terms of Garoppolo, I think it's basically what Jason and Erik have been saying. You have to play all 4 quarters.
It was clearly a different Jimmy G in the fourth, as he was playing to conserve that 20-17 lead that they were clinging on to, rather than attempting to move the offense like he had done in the first 3, and especially in the third when they took that 10-point lead. Mm-hmm. All right, now here's the question that I have for all 3 of you as well. So we talked about this from Jimmy Garoppolo's perspective. Let's look at this from Kyle Shanahan's perspective. We saw what happened with Dan Quinn in Atlanta after the 28-3 debacle against New England here. Does this fall? Is that Dan Quinn style debacle for Kyle Shanahan? Does this tarnish his head coaching legacy, or do you think that this is something he'll recover from? Brandon, I'll start with you.
I think that all depends upon what happens in the future, because if Dan Quinn had come back the next season and was able to lead the Falcons to a Super Bowl victory, then we wouldn't be talking about it at this point. It would be, dead and buried, because he had learned from it and used it as a way to get better, but he didn't. So that's why we're still talking about it. And I think the same thing has to go with Kyle Shanahan. He has to realize that, okay, this is a learning experience. This has to teach me that I can't, sit back on my laurels. You hear it all the time. The best teams, no matter what the score, win or lose, play hard, play at 100% all 4 quarters. And if Shanahan can learn that and realize that you can't take your foot off the gas pedal in any game, no matter what the score is, then I think they've got the talent, certainly, to get back to this position, and I think they'll be able to win a Super Bowl at some point over the next couple of years. And then once they do that, then no one will remember what has happened this year.
Erik, same question. Is this to Kyle Shanahan what the 28-3 game was to Dan Quinn?
As I say this, having recovered from brief awe in seeing a Jägermeister cold brew coffee commercial on TV and wanting to go out to my nearest Total Wine and pick up a bottle, I'm going to say this. Believe it or not, I really don't think the 28-3 falls as much on Dan Quinn as that did on Kyle Shanahan. Lest we forget, Shanahan was the offensive coordinator in that game. Shanahan was the one calling plays. Look at this from this perspective. He's been the man doing this, guiding the offense, calling the plays twice in the two biggest blown leads in Super Bowl history. That one really kind of haunted him as it was. I don't think he comes back from this unless he can go ahead and fully flush. Now, both of these from his memory, he's got a chance. But if all of this starts haunting him even more and it changes his play calling style, he's never going to be the same.
All right, Jason, slight amenity to me asking you the question. You ready?
Yeah.
San Francisco came into this game at 15-3, but obviously the way that the game ended, having the 20-10 lead evaporate the way that it did. Do you consider the season a failure if you're a San Francisco 49er fan?
I don't consider it as a complete failure. I mean, I've seen a lot of progression with, Jimmy G. I mean, there's a star in the making in Deebo Samuels. Kittle is, getting better every game. That defense is coming around. I mean, do I see it as an absolute failure? No. Do I see it as a stumbling block? Yeah, but I see a lot of growth through the season and a lot of room to grow. And they're just going to keep getting better and learning from mistakes and studying film. So the 49ers have a bright future.
The 49ers actually outrushed Kansas City in this game, 141-129. Mostert had 58 yards. Deebo Samuel had 53. My pick to lead the game in rushing, Tevin Coleman, had 28 yards on 5 carries. Eric.
Yeah.
Sorry. Homer's excited on my Simpsons tapped out. That was that you just said.
Better that sound effect than some of the sound effects from when I play Empire. So,
Speaking of which, have any of you guys tried Madden Mobile? It's actually not bad.
I have, even like way back in the day. I love the improvements that they've made.
The only issue I have though is that it's not available in the Amazon store. So, like, I can't put it on my Kindle, and I can't play it on there. It has to be played on an Android device now, or a Apple device.
Now, if they do that to where they hook it up to where you would play like a game with a game controller, like on a Stadia or something like that, then we're definitely talking next level.
All right, let's get back to the question that I was about to ask. As I mentioned, Mostert led the team with 58 yards. Samuel had 53. Coleman had 28 himself. However, I don't think it's arguable that the breakout performance from the running back position came from Kansas City and Damien Williams. He wasn't the starter coming into this season. He'll obviously be the starter going into next. Jason, did Damien Williams just guarantee himself a long-term contract in the NFL with this performance?
No. I thoroughly look for Kansas City to draft a running back this coming draft season. And I don't think that Kansas City has the hopes that everybody else does for Williams. I think that the fact that he did sputter throughout the season, and then, I'm going to throw a name out there, Darwin Thomas, who is also a talented running back in Kansas City, but did suffer going IR and didn't really get his time to shine. I think Kansas City doesn't have faith in him, but I think some other team may try to acquire him, and he starts somewhere outside of Kansas City, and Kansas City actually takes a running back in this draft.
Eric, same question. Did Damien Williams secure a long-term future with Kansas City with his performance in Super Bowl LIV?
I would not say long-term, because if we're looking at the nature of offenses and we're looking at the nature of the game, let's face it, with all the talk of Mahomes being potentially the first ever $200 million player, I've thrown out some numbers I've had. Brett Veach has said since he looked at him after a 66-10 loss at Texas Tech to Iowa State, and since he drafted him, he's had a plan to pay Mahomes. I really think this offense is going to be more built around him and the ability to pass. Unfortunately, while this means that Darren Williams had a great story, has this ring, I agree with Jason. If he has a long-term future, which I really believe it will be outside of Arrowhead. There's no way that they can give Mahomes the money, work around and get other receivers and everybody else, which they're going to do, and keep Darian Williams. With running backs, they're going to go like other teams, be in the draft, get them on the cheap, see what happens. Because remember, Williams himself was undrafted. You could probably strike gold again.
Brandon, same question.
Well, are you talking just by the Chiefs, or are you talking overall? Because I have an answer on both ends.
Basically, you're agreeing with them that it won't be in Kansas City, but he lands elsewhere?
I'm not sure. What I will say, he has one final year left on his contract with Kansas City next year before he's a free agent. Next year, and I don't know, because he was an undrafted player that they just signed. But I would assume that the franchise rules still apply.
That depends. The franchise rules not necessarily, but also keep in mind, next year is a CBA year.
True.
And there's already been a lot of talk of the different changes that are going to be for players' revenue and things like that. I'm sure there could be at least some measure of tweaks to the franchise tag process.
Because my thought is this. No one will give him a big contract just off of one game. But if he continues playing at the level that he played during the Super Bowl and during the playoffs this year, in the first half of next season, I think either Kansas City will try to franchise tag him in order to keep him under their control, or if they do not decide to sign him, as Jason and Eric are mentioning, that I think he will certainly, as long as he has a big season next year, he will get a big contract from someone at the end of 2021.
Speaking of Damien Williams and his long-term potential income, did you guys hear about the Jimmy Kimmel story?
Mm-mm.
No.
Jimmy Kimmel, Damien Williams was a guest on Jimmy Kimmel Live, and Jimmy Kimmel asked him about the jersey swap that he had with Raheem Mostert at the end of Super Bowl LIV.
Mm-hmm.
And Kimmel was kind of busting his stones about it, saying that, yeah, your jersey's probably going to be worth a whole lot more than his is after that game. And Williams actually says, yeah, when I came back home after the game, my mom asked me where the jersey was. Well, it's come out, and this is from ESPN.com, that Raheem Mostert has offered to swap jerseys back with Williams in order to give the jersey back to Damien Williams. So this brings me to a question about jersey swaps for you guys. Do you guys like the tradition of a jersey swap, or do you think it's something that time has moved on from? Eric, I'll ask you first.
I like it in soccer. I like it as sort of a big thing, especially if a player's retiring. You get that last bit of momentum. But aside from that, nah. It's leave it for kind of those two moments. And to be honest, outside of really big international matches, you don't even see the jersey swaps in soccer anymore. So it's a special time and place, but I don't think this in particular was that right time or place.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that, because I feel like we might be seeing some domestic jersey swapping going on in the EPL real soon.
Jason, at least MLS.
It's better. It's better. It's better than seeing domestic violence in your home.
Jason, same question in regards to the jersey swaps. Are you in favor of them? Are you against them? Do you really not care either way?
I'm all for it. I mean, you got to look. I think it's one of those things that is just kind of respectful. I think it should kind of lean toward older players, like Erik was saying. Like if it's a player retiring, like a Brady and a Manning jersey swap, I could see, like or like Eli Phillip Rivers, something like that, or Roethlisberger with one of the quarterbacks he came up with. I think it means more when that happens. Now, being every game, I kind of think it gets watered down. I think it should mean something when it happens rather than just be a prop for, self-promotion.
Brandon, I'll ask you next. Your thoughts on the jersey swap?
Yeah, I mean, I'll agree with what both Erik and Jason had to say for the most part. I also do think, kind of similar to, the reasoning for why we're talking about this, in a big game like that, I don't like it. I understand to an extent, I guess, why some players might like to do it, but you would think that these players would want to have a memento to save for what they've accomplished, getting to the Super Bowl, all of that, the jersey with the patch on it and all of that. So for a game like this, I really don't get it, because you would think, wouldn't you want to save your own jersey from a game like this, especially when, granted, I think these two teams will probably end up making the Super Bowl sooner rather than later again, but you never know in the NFL, so wouldn't you want to have that memento for potentially your only time in the Super Bowl?
Especially since both of them were undrafted.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I think that was the respect that was shown between the two of them on the original jersey swap, is the fact that they were two undrafted players that made it all the way to be the starting running back for their respective teams.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's talk postseason awards from the NFL, shall we?
Okay.
These will have nothing to do with our postseason awards. These are just the awards that were officially handed down at the NFL honors here. Lamar Jackson MVP for the 2019-2020 season. Erik, buy or sell?
I want to buy it, especially because it was unanimous. I understand. But if I were to really go with my honest feelings, I would sell. My vote, especially with how... Okay, all right.
Not asking who. We're saving that for next week because we're going to do our year-end awards.
Okay.
Jason, same question. Buy or sell Lamar Jackson as the MVP?
I'm buying it. I think he had a great season. He deserved it, deserved the recognition. He totally elevated his game from last year. He showed the improvements that needed to be made in his game. So I'm buying it 100%.
Brandon, buy or sell?
If we're just talking regular season based, you gotta buy it. I mean, the amount of improvement that he had from last year, and if you really think about it, what is MVP supposed to be? It's the most valuable player for your team. The amount of the amount of value that he brought to the Ravens and how much improvement the Ravens had as a result of his improvement, you gotta give it to him.
See, I'm going to disagree. I'm going to say no, and my MVP is probably going to surprise a lot of people because of the fact that he played on a subpar team. But I don't think there's any question.
I know exactly where you're going, and I know
where you're going.
I completely disagree because of exactly what I just said. Under 500 teams are automatically disqualified for me because you did not really help your team.
Okay, but
I don't think it's going to be an under 500 team.
No, it is.
I know exactly who he's talking about, and I will watch him on a weekly basis.
Erik, stop. Yeah. 1 second. No, because I want to see if he's actually as correct as he thinks he is.
Let me just say this. Is it a team that I'd be able to watch on a weekly basis? Here.
Son of a bitch.
Yes, see? I told you. I know exactly who you're talking about.
Yeah, he's correct.
Oh yeah. I know who it is then.
Especially for Bisco's sake, when you hear my argument next week, you will understand I am going to buy your exact line of thinking, just with someone else.
Okay,
Well,
fair enough.
I'll expand upon this.
I'm gonna pick.
You know what?
I'm gonna pick Eric's.
All right, you know what?
I know Eric's.
You know what? We can have this debate again next week. I'm curious now. It's going to get the better of me. For those of you who haven't figured it out by now, I'm referring to Christian McCaffrey as my MVP this year. And the reason I'm voting for Christian McCaffrey is yes, the Panthers were god-awful towards the end of the season. But the Panthers got off to a very strong start at the beginning of the season until Cam Newton went down injured. The Panthers at one point, if I'm not mistaken, Eric, were 5-2.
Yes.
And every single bit of that 5-2 was because of Christian McCaffrey, with a quarterback who was a rookie in the NFL in Kyle Allen, who did not know his ass from a hole in the ground by the end of the season, to a receiving core that had a bunch of no names on it, to a defense that completely and entirely collapsed in the second half of the season. McCaffrey became only the second player in NFL history to join the 1,000 club.
Not to mention what he did for just number of receptions. And let's face it, that defense collapsed when Rivera got the boot.
Let's talk about it this way, Brandon. You mentioned very specifically, your exact words were, who made the biggest difference to his team throughout the course of the season. Did you not?
Yes. But I just think that
if you take Christian McCaffrey off of the Carolina Panthers, they challenge the Lions and the Browns 16 this year.
Oh, I agree with that. But at the same time, if you take Lamar Jackson away from the Ravens, they're probably an 8-8 team, if not under 500.
I disagree with the way that RG3 played in Jackson's absence, because RG3 basically ran the exact same offense that Jackson did. Yes, he doesn't have the legs that Jackson does now, but I would argue that RG3 has a better arm than Lamar does.
Fair enough. We'll talk about this more next week, I'm sure.
Jason, would you like to get into yours right now, or do you want to save it for next week?
I know he was itching to guess mine.
I know I can guess Eric's. I said mine would be Lamar Jackson.
Okay. And then who do you think is Eric's?
I think Eric's is a quarterback in the AFC South.
No.
Oh, really?
Really?
See, because I think there's a middle of the road quarterback on a team that elevated his team, became the most valuable player on his team.
Are you referring to Tannehill?
Yes. I think he could have been in the argument just based on what Brandon said he should have been. It's the player that is the most valuable player of your team and elevates your team. Without Tannehill, that team was trash. When Tannehill came in, that Tennessee team turned around and
I
would agree with that.
Something else, not MVP.
I was about to say, I have a funny feeling we'll be mentioning Tannehill's name on a different award next week.
Mm-hmm.
The same one that he got from the NFL Honors. I won't specifically mention it because I don't want to give it away, but yeah, I have a funny feeling that we're going to be talking about Tannehill next week. Eric, do you want to reveal yours, or do you want to wait until next week to do so?
I'm going to be that guy and do a deep tease till next week. Let everybody be thinking.
Alrighty then. Couple of other things to discuss here. We hit an NFL honors there like I wanted to. I just basically wanted to discuss the Lamar Jackson thing from that. I talked about the Raheem Mostert, Damien Williams thing, which I got a kick out of just because I thought it was funny. Let's talk XFL, gentlemen. Jason, I know you work on Saturday. However, the first two games are Saturday at 2 o'clock and 5 o'clock. Even though you can't watch them live, will you be recording them to watch them later?
I'm not going to record them. I want to watch the highlights. Hopefully, with it being football, maybe I can, and it being a Saturday and work being kind of slow and everything. Might be able to talk them on flipping it over while I can catch a little bit of it while I work. But as for recording or anything, no, I will catch the highlights. I may catch a replay of it if the buzz surrounding it is there. I will, I might catch a replay. But I mean, I just don't. I know I'm going to be covering it and covering some stories with it. Me and Erik are, but I think I'm just going to watch highlights, look at the biggest stories, and then if it generates enough buzz to actually get me to record and watch games, then that's when I'll get fully invested. I just don't want to have my hopes set up so high and be let down like I have with previous incarnations of leagues outside the NFL.
Erik, same question. Will you be watching live? And if not live, will you be recording it to watch later?
I will indeed be watching it live. Now, if my schedule changes, then I will have to record it and watch it later. But as plans currently stand, I'm going to be watching those first two games live. And I'm taking the same approach as I have with past leagues outside of the NFL. I was immediately amped up when the sadly defunct Arena Football League, thanks to NBC, moved to the start of their season right after the Super Bowl, because it gave me a nice transition and AFL, CFL, NFL cycle. With other leagues like the AAF, I was excited and then saddened when I was watching the twilight days really before it got started. But yes, I am always of the mindset, and out of even sheer curiosity, am going to be like, okay, how is all of this, because of the hype, really going to work? And will these first couple of games really be set up to start catching that in?
Brandon, same question. Will you be watching live on Saturday?
I mean, I probably won't be watching with nearly as much intensity as I would an NFL game, but I'll probably, flip channels, and when I get to it, I'll probably watch, at least some of the games on Saturday. Yes.
And I will say my answer is a bit more biased because I've already joined 2 XFL fantasy leagues.
They have XFL fantasy leagues already?
Yeah.
On what site?
They're already like,
bro, you could probably get into a fantasy league for pretty much any sport you can imagine. I would assume that there's like fantasy cricket leagues over in like New Zealand.
Probably.
There are.
Speaking of,
when they get to Russian booty slapping in fantasy, then I'll really be a degenerate. But we're not there yet. FanDuel, if you're listening, we need to talk.
I'm not even touching. Family show. I didn't have the words. I just figured I'd move on. All right.
Look,
I'm gonna try.
Look at Nin Explains Top 10 Weirder Sports Part 3. You'll understand what I'm talking about.
I've actually seen the clip before. The first girl to cry loses. I've seen the clip. The fuck is wrong with him? Anyway.
A lot.
I'm just saying. There's money to be made. And as a FanDuel sportsbook, you're trying to expand throughout the states as more states legalize. Why not that be something where gentlemen like myself could potentially wager upon it as well? Damn it, it's a moneymaker sitting right there. Right there.
Is it a moneymaker because it involves around money? Never mind. I'm going to try to catch the 2 o'clock game. Christine and I are going out for an early Valentine's Day dinner on Saturday because of what next weekend is. So we're going to go out and celebrate Valentine's Day early. We're going out on Saturday night for our Valentine's dinner. So I won't be able to catch the 5 o'clock game. However, I'm going to try to catch at least part, if not all, of the 2 o'clock game. I'm willing to give it the same chance that I was willing to give the AAF. And I actually thought the quality of play in the AAF was pretty good. It's just unfortunate they didn't have the backing in order to sustain it long term.
Completely agree.
The main difference is, though, is I think that the XFL, at least presently, has the financial backing to sustain it. As long as they can maintain the corporate partnerships that they have with ESPN, Fox, and well, I guess ESPN and Fox, NBC as well, because ESPN has games on ABC as well, and then games on ESPN3. As long as they have a place to put the games where people will watch, and as I understand it, they're not actually getting any licensing fees from these games, but they are getting the production costs paid, which is going to help take some of the stress off of the McMahon family in regards to the bottom line of the XFL. I think that there is a potential for this league to survive multiple seasons if the quality of play on the field can live up to the quality of play that was shown by a league such as the AAF last year at this time.
I think, and maybe this is just my bias and my thoughts on things, but correct me if I'm wrong, there has never really been a spring football league that has really been able to maintain the ratings beyond the first week or two. Because, and I think there's a reason why. In spite of in spite of everyone saying, oh, America is football first, football first, football first. Yes, that may be true for a portion of the population, but a lot of sports fans, they've grown accustomed to having seasons. Fall is football. Fall and winter is football. After February, either A, you're, a basketball fan and you're completely focused on basketball until summer, or you're like myself, and February, you're starting to get ready for pitchers and catchers. Spring training. You're thinking about a completely different sport. Football season is over. You're on to another sport.
Bisco or words?
Yes.
United States Football League.
Okay, fair enough.
I feel like there's potential to be successful if they can find the right quality of play. Jason, we talked when we were doing the show last year at this time, and the AAF was about to launch, that there would be potential for 3 major leagues to be active in the United States of America at the same time. Obviously, the AAF is non-sustainable. However, do you think that the fans of professional football in the United States and perhaps abroad through overseas contracts will be able to sustain a second league full-time here in the U.S.?
I think they will. I think I would have done a different launch. I think I would have launched the first Saturday in April. Reason being, I don't know if it's the first Saturday in April this year. We'll go second Saturday in April to be on the safe side. Because launching in February, you do run into the burnout effect of people seeing football for the past. You get the potential burnout. You do want to switch it up, and then once March hits, the most popular thing in March is college basketball. Mm-hmm. So I would want to avoid that. But as soon as the national championship game in college basketball hit, I would be all over launching the league. But I do think that it is sustainable with the right timing, because once you get into your full swing, you will be going up against baseball and a little bit of hockey, but you also have the ability to start getting that buzz for the NFL season right around the draft. And it gives players that went undrafted the opportunity to join the league as free agents.
Well, that's funny that you mentioned that, actually, because the current schedule right now actually has the championship game of the XFL, play the day after the last day of the NFL draft.
See,
I'm kind of, because of piggybacking off of Jason's points. Number one, you wouldn't directly be going up against the national championship. Your only risk would be the Final Four, because the national championship game is played right around the first Monday in April.
For the record, the Final Four is April 6th.
Okay. So, number two, going back to another league that, believe it or not, also sustained their ratings after the first week and kept going for multiple seasons. I referenced the Arena Football League. Most of the time, they filled that void post Super Bowl. They waited. Then, right around April-ish, they kicked off. So then right around July, right before the NFL preseason, they had the Arena Bowl. What happened when NBC, one of the big four networks, came in and they said, hey, we're going to market for you right after the Super Bowl? What does everybody remember? One of the main things about the AFL, the glory days were the NBC year. I don't think the timing is problematic at all. You're not necessarily getting that burnout, but this at the same time fills right that sweet spot, because when this ends, especially if you're not a CFL fan, you've got that, okay, I don't have to pay attention to OTAs or anything else. I can look at some of these prospects as training camp goes. Then you get that downtime, pre-Hard Knocks, then leading into the preseason.
Well, actually, it's funny that you mentioned the NFL draft and the downtime here, because there's actually a player in the XFL that's using this as kind of a precursory opportunity for the NFL draft, if that makes sense. And it has something to do with Jason's team of choice in West Virginia. Have you seen the story as well, Erik?
I don't think I've seen this particular story.
Jason, do you know what I'm referring to? Because I got to find the kid's name in order to actually describe it.
Actually, I do not. This is the first I've heard of it, which, I mean, I haven't been able to follow up on a lot of stories lately. But, yeah, I mean, I haven't seen it on any blogs or anything that I keep up with West Virginia players.
All right, let me give me a second. One of you guys suggest a topic and the other two touch on it. I'll touch on it as soon as I come back. Give me a second to look this up so that way I can find the correct name, so that way I can explain the story in question.
Okay.
I wonder down the road how many rules that the NFL will adopt from the XFL.
Well, that was going to be my question, was what do you guys think of the rules, and do you think that they will be successful, or do you think they're going to basically turn football too weird to where fans will be turned off by it?
Some of them I like. Some of them I will say, and I'm just going to be out and out, I don't like how little the XFL is for the brand. I get the extra points. I like what they're doing on kickoff. But do you really gotta disrespect punters like that?
Yeah, that's the one that I absolutely despise, because whether it's in a real game or especially in my case in Madden, the coffin corner kick is one of those rare art forms that I just love to see be executed properly in a football game.
Because it adds that extra element, especially if you've got a top-level defense. Hey, you're giving them an advantage. See if they can score a safety.
Exactly. Yeah, I've always liked that, so it's going to be weird, not like you're going to be seeing a lot more going for it on fourth down and all of this. I just think it's just going to completely change the game to where it's going to be unrecognizable.
Yeah, just like I saw the different changes in mentality and strategy in arena football towards the end, I didn't really like that. I am not going to be a big fan of some of this, but I'm willing to give it a benefit of the doubt.
Mm-hmm.
And also, especially Harry can answer this when he gets back. Would
I'm
it
here.
be the worst idea, not really even for next week, but for afterward, if I go ahead and spitball to the audience some of the crazy ideas I've had for football and for different sports? I know we've had discussions, but I'm like, okay, I need to let the masses know and potentially capitalize off of it
All
if
right.
I'm right.
All right. Next week is the year-end awards. I don't know if we'll have time to do anything beyond those next week, just because I expect with the various awards that we're going to discuss that they might run a little bit on the lengthier side.
Oh, yeah, I know. I'm not even saying next week. I'm saying even if we convene at any point after next week.
That's something that we'll have to discuss off air in order to set up, and we'll get to it then. Fair enough?
Fair enough.
Fair.
Jason,
Yeah.
the name Kenny Robinson mean anything to you?
That's on Man Robinson's boy.
Thanks. Helpful. The most recent member of the Mountaineers to land in the XFL is Kenny Robinson, and I'll have to include this link to you, Brandon, so that way you can put the article in the show description, because I'm reading it from the article here. Who was essentially dismissed from the team, but threw his name into the transfer portal. Although he received calls from multiple schools, nothing ever progressed, allowing him to choose the XFL route earlier this year. Earlier this month, Robinson was deemed eligible for the 2020 NFL draft. This is something we kind of talked about when these two leagues were originally announced last year. Do you think that we will see a more prolific amount of players now choosing to forego college eligibility and play in a pro-style league such as the XFL rather than staying in college?
Well,
I understand that the money's not going to be great in the XFL, like the high end contracts in the XFL, like the quarterback contracts are like $500,000, I believe I read somewhere. It's like the high end contracts. But do you think that the opportunity to get paid professionally and to put tape out there on yourselves in a professional setting will be enough of a draw to influence potentially people leaving college early? Bisco, you were about to respond before I expanded.
Well, the one question I was going to ask was, I'm assuming the XFL has no rules about eligibility or anything like that? Or do they?
All they have released thus far is that they do not have plans to follow the NFL's eligibility model. Everything else is open to interpretation, but nothing concrete.
So go ahead, Harry.
Which would seemingly mean that players that are maybe not college eligible due to grades might be able to go to the XFL instead.
Yeah. So considering that, and considering the XFL is leaving it wide open, especially if they start to become successful and they start to continue to expand and they start, making some money off of it, I could easily see a kid even potentially coming out of high school whose family is struggling saying, I'd rather go into the XFL draft. And not only that, but, well, the timing wouldn't be quite as right. Well, not necessarily, because some kids are able, I don't know exactly how this works on this end, but there are some kids that enroll into college and start college early in January in order to be able to play in spring games. So if theoretically a high school player could graduate early, he could theoretically go straight into the XFL come February and start playing right out of high school.
Jason, your thoughts on the potential for players to forego college altogether to join XF to take the chances in the XFL?
I think you have a serious problem with that. If you're trying to go straight into the XFL, I understand having the opportunity there, but you also have to have the mentality there.
I agree. I'm not saying that it's going to make them successful, but think about the type of people that are, predominantly playing in college and playing in the NFL. We see it in basketball all the time, especially before the NCAA rules. And we even see it now with, the G League and with overseas. These kids from poor, families would rather be making money right away than having to go to school.
Yes, but also you have to have some responsibility. And the league has to take some responsibility over the fact that you still have kids. For just going back, for every LeBron and Kobe, you have a failure. You have quite a few failures. And that was an issue that the NFL stood by, because physically and mentally, you're not ready for that kind of level of play. With that being said, I think that if a player went straight into the XFL, suffered a career-ending injury, that's a massive lawsuit. Because it's a liability in itself.
I'm sure, this is Vince McMahon we're talking about. I'm sure he would have some sort of, part of that contract that would forbid them from suing if anything were to happen.
Or at least some kind of term set into the contract that if you were to suffer any kind of life-altering injury, that you accept such and such of a settlement rather than attempting to cash in on it.
Exactly. So, and along the same lines, yes, I agree with you in principle that that's what they should do. But again, this is Vince McMahon we're talking about. While we've never really seen it in football, so I don't know how well it would work in football. But as we saw in basketball with guys like LeBron, like Garnett,
there's a reason you haven't
coming in.
There's a reason you haven't seen it in football, is because the NFL has a 23-year-old rule.
No, I understand that. But what I was going to say was, I think if Vince saw dollar signs by a, number one overall recruit out of high school who makes a big name for himself, becomes a big deal as a result of ESPN, and high school athletics are being covered more and more now, so there is that potential to get a LeBron-type situation where he comes out of high school being a household name already, and if he wants to go straight to the XFL to make a name for himself in the pros and make some money for himself and for his family, I'm sure Vince McMahon would see dollar signs and say, come on in.
See, okay.
There's a big problem I have with that, and that
I do.
That we have.
Go ahead and state your point, Jason, then I'm going to chime in as well, because I actually have a problem with that as well.
Because, one, do you really think that a player that is, quote unquote, a superstar athlete would rather go to the XFL over to a premier college team such as an Alabama, a Miami, a Florida, an Ohio State, where they can actually improve their stock to make millions of dollars and be an elite athlete, or would they settle for making a far less payday, giving up at eligibility, and playing in a league that has a far more lax rules where their career could be cut much shorter?
You are probably right. Alabama probably would pay them more.
And also, do you really think the NFL will accept another player from a rival league, a quote-unquote rival league, and owners would draft a player from that league?
See, I think that there is potential for players to do well enough in the XFL that they get an opportunity in the NFL. I don't necessarily know that you'll see players from the XFL drafted into the NFL, especially given how the respective seasons align. Let me ask you guys this in regards to that, because one of the things that Jason brought up was the physical maturity of a person going from high school into the XFL here. And I think that's the biggest concern. I think that if I'm Vince McMahon, I'm trying to minimize as much of the risk as possible when it comes to a situation like this here. And one of the ways that I do that is I kind of set up a similar rule to that of the NFL. Nobody under the age of 20 is allowed anywhere near my league. So that way they have a chance to grow up and grow into being an actual full-sized adult male before they're getting hit by guys that are in some cases twice their size.
See,
Jason?
okay.
Real quick, Bisco, because you and Jason have been kind of dominating this part of the conversation. I want to get Erik's thoughts on this here. Erik, realistically speaking here, do you think that there is a place for the high school phenom athlete to want to take the opportunity to skip straight to playing in a professional league here? And do you think it's in the best interest of a promotion of a league such as the XFL to stop them from doing so or to allow them to do so?
I am going to say no, and I've got a few reasons why. And for the XFL, it would be their best interest to stop them because, number one, as has been pointed out, the NFL, 3 years after your high school class graduate, that's for a reason. Yes, you talked about a LeBron, a Kobe, a Kevin Garnett. Fine. Even with guys like your one-and-done guys like Zion. Okay, you would have at 18, 19 NBA bodies, all you have to do is just have endurance from going to a 30 or 40 game season to an 82 game season. And with all of the changes in the NBA style, it's not as physical. You do have more nutritionists and things like that. It would make that transition easier. You don't have high school football players with NFL or even XFL bodies. I only know of really one person. I forget his name. Charlton County, Georgia, high school, 2011. He was a senior that year. I will go into a very interesting story off air of why this particular game, that particular day, comes into play in my memory. But there was this one lineman, or number 68, as a high schooler, 6'8", 429. You could argue, yes, at 18, had a professional football body. But how rare is that? How many times have we seen from people even going and graduating high school to by the time they're drafted, their body evolves? Even in cases like a Lamar Jackson, they evolve their bodies after they get into the NFL. That is just a sheer necessity that cannot be underestimated. And if you're talking about this from the college angle, the Power 5 schools, as they continue to consolidate, get this transfer portal, change the rules like the Big Ten is trying to do with this transfer portal, they would not lose out. They could still be recruited, especially as the name, image, and likeness rules expand and the NCAA gets their head out of their ass and really does something about it. But for those in the group of 5, Division 2, Division 3, they would see the equivalent of more guys who are one and done, as you would get fewer scholarships. They could go ahead, take that time, play, bulk up, then step up and go into the XFL, having a better adapted body. And then from the XFL, like the CFL, like other leagues, someone from the NFL signs them. They've already got experience under their belt as a professional, and off they go. But making that jump is a lot easier in the NBA because of the style of sport and the demand it takes on your body than it is in the NFL. And that gap will never be bridged.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with what you guys are saying. I agree that it would be hard, if not impossible, for someone to go straight from high school into a pro league. But what my thought isn't so much whether it would be possible or smart for the player to do it. My thought is both the players may want to do it in order to make money. Now, what you said right there, Eric, about the NCAA loosening the rules and the potential of players being paid by the schools themselves now and then being able to make money off of their likenesses in college may make this whole thing a moot point. But at the current juncture, you have these kids who are from very poor families who may very well say, I'm going to take my chance, and as long as the rules are the way they are currently, they may say, I want to take my chance and make my money now to help my family, and whatever happens, happens. Is it a smart move? No. But will it probably happen if the XFL does not close the loophole? Yes.
Well, I don't really think it would happen at this juncture because I've heard and seen players jumping from indoor and arena football saying, yeah, I made only a little bit in these leagues, but if I'm only making, so much per game and it's only like $1,000 or $2,000, which would work out for a good portion of these players, it wouldn't even be worth the financial betterment. Because, yes, 25 grand is better than nothing. But if you're looking for money to feed your family, you can't do that. Not on that little bit, not nowadays.
At least not for any kind of extended period of time. Jason, final thoughts on the subject before we move on?
I just think that, you also have to look at what these players, if that did happen, how much you think these players are actually going to be offered? I mean, it's ridiculous to even consider that they're going to come out with a high tier. You're going to probably be making, when you break it down, with all the work you have to put in, you're going to probably be making less than minimum wage. You could go to McDonald's and probably make more money and not have the wear and tear on your body.
All right. Well, we'll obviously touch on this topic more and more as it becomes more and more relevant in terms of whether or not the XFL survives its opening season. But we do have the games this weekend to look forward to. Anybody interested in doing XFL picks? Okay, maybe not for week 1.
No.
I've seen a pretty couple interesting lines, but I would not be too quick to hammer Dallas as the championship favorite. Just saying.
I don't trust anything Dallas related when it comes to football.
Well, I mean, they have released odds for who would win Super Bowl LV. Oh, it's interesting. Very interesting.
Already up to 55 Super Bowls. Look, coming up on 55 Super Bowls. All right. Any other topics to touch on while we're doing the show right now?
The latest Antonio Brown thing or the Tom Brady madness?
The Hulu thing with Tom Brady, the Hulu commercial during the Super Bowl?
Among others, yes.
All right, well, we actually didn't discuss that. Our favorite Super Bowl commercial. Because I think we pretty much had a consensus here on the show as to which one was our favorite.
I don't know. I think I might have been the oddball out.
I might have been different myself. I'm not sure.
Okay, then let's go ahead. Erik, what was your favorite Super Bowl commercial?
Honestly, especially because of the different types of humanity I deal with on a regular basis, the Snickers commercial. That won me over in so many different ways.
Brandon?
I think mine had to have been the Rick and Morty one.
For Pringles?
Yep.
Jason?
The Old Man Google commercial.
So I was the only one whose favorite one was the Bill Murray Jeep commercial with the Groundhog's Day?
I like it. I thought that was my second favorite, but there was just something about that Google commercial that hit me in the feels, and it reminded me of one of the old Budweiser commercials with the Clydesdales, and it got me in my feels.
Bud.
Why?
Nah, I was thinking more of the Clydesdales, not that was a Bud Light commercial too, if I'm not mistaken.
No, it wasn't.
Well, it originated as a Budweiser commercial, and then they moved to Bud Light in later years. No, my favorite Clydesdale commercial is still the one where they're playing football, and then the zebra is a referee.
That referee's a jackass.
No, actually, it's the zebra. I remember the line.
Is that the same one that the sheep comes out and it streaks?
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah, that was that one, and the 9/11 one that only aired once was probably my favorite Budweiser commercials.
Now I want to go on YouTube and find the zebra referee commercial. All right, Erik, lead us down the road that is TB12.
Okay. Well, as we all know, a certain old Ugg boot wearing Hulu advertising fuck is finally a free agent. Whoop-de-doo. A certain old man who's after my heart, especially with Florida massage parlors, is willing to pay said old fuck $30 million a year to stay at a team and be coached by an always either grumpy-looking or constipated-looking man who wears cut-off hoodies. Said man who wears cut-off hoodies said he would prefer said old fuck to remain with said team. Other teams have been making plays for the old fuck. So, with all of this madness, I ask of thee, where do you think said old fuck goes?
I think he stays in New England.
If I haven't pissed anybody off, then I really was off my game in that introduction.
Brandon, I'll ask you first. Where does said old fuck land?
I don't see him moving anywhere. I don't see him going anywhere. He's going to stay in New England.
Jason?
Yeah, I don't see. He's not going anywhere. Kraft will pay him whatever it takes to keep him. I think Brady will retire as a Patriot and then move to a front office job.
Erik?
Personally, I narrow it down to really two more realistic options because there's an old Southern man who has investment with a team that should not have moved but did. There are business transactions. Team that should not have moved but did shares stadium with old not Southern man. Old not Southern man and old Southern man are friends. There is money to be had. With that, the two realistic possibilities in my mind, he stays with the hoodie or he goes to the LA team that should be in San Diego. If, however, you go down the rabbit hole like I do, it would be stupid for one team, extremely beneficial for the other. But there's a wild card that I'm probably one of only a handful of people that are talking about, especially given visceral reactions after the Super Bowl. I'm not even going to say, go ahead, Harry.
I was going to say I have an opinion as to where he lands, but did you give an official answer on that? Because it seemed like a giant runaround.
Well, the reason why I say I personally does think he moves because of a variety of
as well
to LA, but there's a wild card that I would think would create total and utter havoc and would make everybody flip their shit. But I will reveal that later.
I also think that he's going to end up a Los Angeles Charger, especially in the wake that the Chargers are moving on from Mr. Rivers.
Welcome to Philip.
And I think I know your wild card, actually.
I think I do as well.
Okay.
Is it
Las Vegas with the Raiders?
No.
Is it one Southern Florida team that the Super Bowl was just hosted by?
No.
He ain't playing fucking Tampa Bay.
No, I said I was talking about Miami.
Yes. No. Harry, we're actually closer with Vegas.
So what, Denver to play for Elway?
No.
Are you talking about... No, it couldn't be Dallas, no.
No. That's been mentioned, but that would be too obvious.
That would be funny as fuck, though. Would be Jerry. That would be the ultimate Jerry Jones fuck you to Dak Prescott.
Are you talking about Arizona?
I can think of something that's even funnier.
Is it Arizona?
No. Funnier, but it would be miserable for one franchise. You're warmer. You're in the right division.
Are you talking about San Francisco?
Yes.
Oh my God. Oh.
Hear me out. I know the reason why I'm filing this in the boy would this be interesting is all hell, but absolutely chaotic situation.
Mm-hmm.
And it would take a lot of things to happen. Number one, there would be something to where if people really get their wish and get rid of Jimmy G, which would be absolutely stupid, Jimmy G comes home to New England.
Oh, that would be even funnier.
Belichick gets his man. Brady heads out west to San Francisco. And in an extra fuck you move, as it was originally one of the things that would have been talked about, and knowing Belichick's recent history with receivers, what if one certain OBJ all of a sudden decides, holy hell, look at what's going on in New England. I'm not winning a championship anywhere else. Ring, 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 ring.
Literally won a ring.
Yes.
And he basically becomes the new Randy Moss or Ocho Cinco.
Yes. He would get his ring, but with Garoppolo, already knowing the system, already with Josh McDaniels, that team would stay a contender and potentially continue the dynasty as long as Belichick decides to stick around. The reason it would be chaotic in San Francisco, number one, Brady would not be wearing the number 12. John Brody would come up and pimp slap him, and I would hate to see it. Number two, they would be in an even deeper quarterback quandary because if Jimmy G stays right now, you know you've got him locked in through the rest of his contract, possibly one other one as he's only 28. You've got Brady. You're going to still be looking for another guy in the draft, and you're going to be on in a couple of years. But even bigger thing, how would Kyle Shanahan feel knowing that he's staring 28-3 right in the face every day?
What would be even funnier if that did happen, I highly doubt this does happen, but if it did, I would love to see them both get into the Super Bowl and Jimmy G basically bitch slapping Brady saying, you want to try to, get me out of your hair? I'm going to beat you now.
Oh, and even better, I know Gronk is about to file his paperwork, but say that they go a different route, but instead of Gronk coming back as a tight end, he comes back as more of a wide receiver. Jimmy G would be like, hey, remember us? Yeah, that number 10 don't look as good as on you, does it, bitch? Do this.
All right, Jason, you've been kind of quiet here. Let's say hypothetically Brady does leave New England. What would you say would be the most likely landing place for him?
Tampa Bay. I think he would. I think to go down there, that would be Arian's wet dream, and not want to go out. Not going to mention that, my hometown, my current city ties to Tampa Bay. You give him that receiving core down there, and you get and they can concentrate just on defense with Arians at the helm. Tampa Bay looks hella scary. Or I'm going to throw this out there. I'm going to pivot and say, what would happen if you seen Brady land in Carolina and have a superb running back that he's really never had, that's a amazing pass catcher that he could build a hell of a repertoire with, and you put him in Carolina and they end up in a weaker division because it's pretty much the Saints division. You throw Brady on Carolina, let them build around the defense. I think that's a possibility. I don't see him going out of L.A. I think, and honestly, I think if Brady was to leave New England, Belichick would leave as well. You would see the emergence of McDaniel's promotion to head coach, and you would see him scrapping a lot of because what Kraft likes to do, and this has been noted, and I'm surprised it hasn't happened to Brady. Once players get a certain age, Kraft doesn't like to hold them. He likes to get rid of them. He likes to put them out to pasture to other teams and while they have value.
That's more
Brady's the exception.
That's more Belichick than Kraft.
So I would not mind seeing Brady end up in the NFC South because that would be fun because if the three-time Brady, seeing Brady versus Brees twice a year would be,
especially given the fact that there's probably only I would say tops 2 or 3 years left in Drew Brees' career.
Agreed. And everybody that's even hinting around at Indianapolis, shut your face for 1,000 reasons.
I don't think he goes to Denver.
No.
That's just, but I mean, I think he would want to go, and I mean, hell, a lot of people go to Florida to retire anyway, so Tampa Bay would kind of work out for him. I mean,
he's not wrong. We're called God's waiting room for a damn reason.
You know, it'd be hella funny. What if he ended up in Jacksonville?
I think Eric's dead. You just killed Erik. I hope you're happy. You just killed Erik.
I mean, realistically, what if he ended up in Jacksonville? We know the money they could pay him.
No, we couldn't.
Trust me, they would find a way to pay him.
No, have you seen the numbers on Nick Foles? Have you seen how cheap and inept this front office is, no, we can't.
Okay, are you saying that if the front office had a chance to sign Brady, they would be like, "Oh no, we don't want to"?
Yes. I am
saying
absolutely saying that.
The Jacksonville front office and their notorious cheapness, yes.
I would
Again,
bet
cheapness
I would bet you 2 gallons of purple drink and a Vine Sweet watermelon that they would make a run at him.
throw in an eighth and you've got a deal.
I'll throw in a family packet from KFC.
Oh, can you do Popeyes, especially with that spicy chicken sandwich?
I'd say the views and opinions of Erik Watkins and Jason Teasley don't represent the W2M network, but now that we're associated with Rattledge, yeah, they kind of do. Son of a bitch. All right, you had one more.
This show's went a hell of a lot longer than what we expected.
Yeah, really.
Well, we got into discussing some news and notes from around the league. Erik, you had one other thing that you wanted to touch on. Did you still want to hit it, or do you think we can pull the plug here at about an hour and a half?
I'll pull the plug. We've had enough of AB apologizing.
So what you're saying is, much like God's waiting room, we too were pulling the plug?
Yeah.
And now I'm going to hell with those two.
Enjoy the ride, because it's going to be swell.
I'm driving the bus, so take that for what it's worth.
And we're going to get pulled over on our way. Damn it, Harry, family show.
Is there such a thing as riding dirty on the way to hell? Because, I mean, wouldn't that just defeat the purpose?
No, I would just be my balls.
Olin. They hating. Okay, that's as much of that song as I can quote without getting us sued. Erik, where can people find you online?
At Squid Sportshead on Twitter. Other plans that I've got in the works, and then all throughout this network, you've got the up-and-coming Black Irish podcast. Soccer to the Max will be returning later this month. And as always, if you're willing to undergo a vetting process, slide into my DMs, we will talk, and you can gain access to my dark Twitter, Snapchat, and Telegram. And boy, hell, that Telegram. I'm telling you.
I'm feeling like his Snapchat is going to be premium soon. Just saying. Jason, where can people find you online?
Snapchat, but...
Well, I mean, you could find me at TurkeyGlue822 on Twitter, where I will probably tell you to go fuck yourself unless it involves fantasy football. As Eric mentioned, the forthcoming Black Irish podcast will be debuting sometime in the near future once we get everything lined out and get a recording schedule and everything. And usually for the next day or two, you can find me on my fat ass watching TV in my living room.
Hey, Jason, I need to congratulate you before we get out of here. You know why?
Because is it 3 years in a row?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I haven't mentioned that yet. I'll do that at the end. But no, that wasn't what I was referring to. What I was actually referring to is the fact that you finally found somebody from this podcast to do another show with you. What that feels like.
Yeah. But and you know what? There might be some fantasy football talk on that one.
Brandon, where can people find you online?
They can find me online on Twitter at Bisco_GothamSN and for the North Myrtle Beach Chiefs Sports Network at North Myrtle NMB Chiefs Online on Twitter and on SHN Sports on YouTube. So be sure to check out the game on Friday, as it's a big rivalry game.
What time do you guys tip off tomorrow?
Girls tip off at 6. Boys at 7:30.
7:30. That's right before SmackDown. That's going to be cutting it kind of close.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll check out.
Now, do you have a live stream that like we could send messages in? Because that would be like really interesting to have us three pop into a live stream. as you're doing the show.
Technically,
we're fired.
Technically, yes, but I never go on it because I'm broadcasting the game.
So we can just go on there and talk shit about you and be like, man, this announcer fucking sucks.
God.
And he would never see it until the game was over. Absolutely. Yes.
No.
Facts.
There we go.
HEB the Eagle.
Don't give me any ideas.
HEB the Eagle on Twitter, HEB the Eagle on Instagram, although I barely use either of them. Harry Broadhurst on Facebook. Make sure you guys check me out on there. Talk sports, wrestling, video games. I'm starting to play more video games. I'm working on getting my Xbox One set up, and pretty soon, once I do that, I'm totally downloading Rocket League. So if anybody wants to come at me and get a game of Rocket League in, let me know. We'll set it up too.
I still need to try that. I've been meaning to try that game.
Okay, try that again, Eric, because Bisco cut you off.
You're sounding a lot like an executive producer around here that we know.
I'm just starting to get into them, and it's not like Christine tells me what I can and can't podcast.
You stole my thunder. Hey,
sorry.
But you know what? Also, we won't be having live from Niagara Falls with Christine in the background.
Unless.
Nope. Shut the hell up, Eric. No. Not even going down that. Not even entertaining that line of thought. Real quick before we get out of here. Jason 10 correct. Eric 9 correct. Brandon 8 correct. I got 6 on the Super Bowl prediction pool. So Jason wins for the second year in a row.
Is it the second or third? I mean,
second. We didn't do one the first year. We didn't do like a full setup like we did for last year's.
Because the first year was the emergence of Ginger Damas.
Yeah, but then again, at the same time, who actually picked the winner in something resembling the score?
I picked the winner. I picked the winner, the MVP, and the key player of the game when you guys told me I was ridiculous and asked me who it was for the second time since I've joined this podcast.
Technically, none of us picked Mahomes as the MVP, so.
No.
You got screwed on MVP, though, because it really should have been Damien Williams.
True.
All right. You've been listening to The Kickoff. We are a presentation of the W2M Network. You can find us online at W2Mnet.com as well as on all of your favorite podcast listening services such as iTunes, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Spreaker, Podbean, CastBox. Hey, Brandon, guess what?
Spotify is here.
Domestic violence is bad.
Still dick.
You guys are all talking over each other and jumping on my line. You know what? Glacier's still a dick, too. How about that? Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you guys next week with our year-end awards here on The Kickoff on the W2M Network.